and welcome to my one-take wrap-up for February. If you didn't watch last month's, basically what this is I wrap up the books I read in the month, but it is a one-take, like I'm not going to do any editing, I'm just gonna post it, sharing the books I read this month. So February was not a great month for reading, just like January was not a great month for reading for me. I've just been so busy with school, I haven't had a lot of energy to read. So I read, let me count with the graphic novels. I read 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 books this month, which I think is the same as last month. So not great, but I guess I got some reading done. So first I read Avengers Scarlet Witch by Dan Abnett and Andy Lanning. This is a graphic novel bind-up of some of Scarlet Witch's origin comics. I really enjoyed it. I'm going to be posting a whole reading vlog with these comics I've been reading next week, I believe. So look out for that. And then next, I read The Duke Heist by Erica Ridley, which I adored. I was sent this for review, an arc of it. It is out now though, and I loved this book. Like, definitely like one of my new favorite romance books. It's so good. This is a historical romance about Chloe and Lawrence, and Chloe is sort of in this found family situation. She was an orphan growing up and was like adopted by this rich guy. He wasn't very like high in society, but he was, you know, he had the name to get into the big parties kind of thing. And he just started adopting all of these sort of wayward children. And he has recently passed away, and he left this family behind, but they live in London and they're happy together, and the whole plot starts with they're trying to steal back a painting that they believe represents their family. It's not actually a portrait of their family, which is what I thought in the beginning, but it's just a painting that they like associate with him and with their family. And Lawrence's father is who has the painting, and his father has just recently passed as well, and so they come up with this scheme to try and steal it back from him, and it's really fun. It's what leads them to meeting, and literally they're so good together. I love them so much. The found family aspect, plus like they're not really meant for each other because Lawrence is trying to marry up in society because he's broke and has no money, and he's a rich woman to marry for her dowry, and he thinks she doesn't have any money, she doesn't have that standing in society, and it's just so good. If you want to get into historical romance, I definitely recommend this one. It would be a good place to start, I think, because it's a really approachable story and approachable writing, even though it is in the 1800s or whenever it is. I don't know what year it takes place, but I adored this book. It was so good. 1817. And I cannot wait to read more books by Erica Ridley. She has a sequel coming out to this, I think next year, or like this fall, I mean, and I cannot wait for it. It's going to be a female-female romance, and it's going to be amazing. I can't wait. I cannot recommend this book enough. Then I read Cress by Marissa Meyer, and I loved this book as well. Maybe this is why I didn't get a lot of reading done this month, because this book is so long, but I really loved this one. This is my favorite in the series so far, because the introduction of Cress was incredible, because she's just such a fun character to read about. She just fills me with so much joy, and I loved her getting to see her interact with all the other characters as well. I mean, she didn't get to interact with Scarlet much because Scarlet's elsewhere, but in case you didn't know, this is a series about a society in the future where they are plagued by a plague, and it's called Letmosis? I don't know how to pronounce it, but that is not the biggest problem they have. So the Lunars, which are the population who live on the moon, are trying to take over the Earth in sort of a subtle way that no one's really realizing what's going on. But the queen, who is on the moon, is technically not the rightful heir to that throne, because there is a lost princess who should be the rightful heir, but she's lost. So we find out who that lost princess is, and I won't spoil that, but I really, really love this series, and this addition to the series was so good. Cress and Thorn are literally one of my new favorite like couples, and they're not even really a couple yet, but like, oh my god, I love them. I love them. They're so sweet together, and I just cannot wait to read Winter. It did just come in the mail a couple days ago, so it will be something I pick up very soon in March. And I just absolutely adore this book. I love Cinder and Kai as well, and all of the twists and turns that happen in like the last 100 pages of this book made me like lose my mind. They were so good. The twist with Cress and Dr. Ireland really tugged at my heartstrings, and then everything that happened with Scarlet in this book is absolutely wild. I really hope that gets resolved. Like, I know it's going to be somewhat resolved by the next one, but because it's the finale, but this was just so good. I loved it so much. Next, I read another graphic novel, and that is Avengers Vision and the Scarlet Witch by Bill Mantlo, and this was a collection of their origin story comics, so like more about Vision and Scarlet Witch becoming a couple. Their wedding comic is in here, and this one was a lot of fun to read. So I'm loving WandaVision, and so I've been reading all these comics and I'm doing this thing for a video, but I loved seeing their relationship, how it is in the comics, because it's honestly not that different from how we've seen them portrayed in the MCU. Obviously, in these comics, they get to be the main characters, whereas in the MCU, Scarlet Witch historically has been the character that's kind of been pushed aside the most, but now with WandaVision, she finally gets the spotlight and is like the best-selling Marvel thing ever, so ha. But Scarlet Witch has been my favorite character for so long, so I am loving reading her origin story. I'm kind of sad that I didn't pick up these comics earlier. I just was always very intimidated by the comics and didn't want to like, didn't know where to start. So I'm so glad I'm reading all of these. I loved these stories. My favorite was the one when they just moved into their house in New Jersey and it's Halloween night, and they accidentally release like this ghost like witchy thing, and it turns some trick-or-treating kids into like real monsters. It's very Scooby-Doo, and I loved it, and it was so much fun to read. And then lastly, the only other book I read this month was Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers. I actually literally just finished this before filming the video, so technically I finished it in March, but I read like 90% of it in February, so I'm counting it to February. I really enjoyed this sequel. I was a little bit surprised with how the book was laid out compared to the movie. So in the book, the first half is Legolas and Aragorn and everyone else and Gandalf coming back and all that. And then the second half is Sam and Frodo and Gollum. And it's very like split apart, wherein the movie they weave those two stories together throughout the 4 hours of the movie. And I actually like, I think I like the movie better in that aspect, and being able to jump back and forth between the two storylines. It was kind of weird. It felt like two separate books in this one, and these are split into book like 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever it is. So I did kind of feel like disconnected between those two parts of the story. That being said, I enjoyed both parts of those stories. I am very excited. The Helm's Deep battle is one of my favorite scenes. I'm not a big like battle scene person. I get bored, but what gets me through that scene is Legolas and Gimli and their body count like joke. It's just so funny to me. And in the movie, like Orlando Bloom and the actor who plays Gimli like play that so well. It's so good. And I was surprised to find that that was like actually something from the book. Like they really were keeping count and like arguing with each other about who was better. So I really enjoyed that. And then the second half with Frodo and Samwise starting the very long journey. I am basically just once again reminded that Sam is my favorite character. He was my favorite character in the movies. He's been my favorite character thus far in the books, and I don't think that's going to change. I love him so much. The scene with the spider, spiders. I just love it so much because while it's so sad, when Sam finds Frodo all wrapped up and poisoned and whatever and thinks that Frodo is dead, literally it hurts so much. And when Sam says, "Don't go where I can't follow," like my heart, I love Sam so much. He is the epitome of a hero in a fantasy novel. And I've met the actor who played Sam in the movies at Comic-Con, and in his panel he was talking about how really Sam is the hero of the story. Frodo has that hero's journey just the same. He's the one who carries the ring, and he is the one who gets there in the end. But like, if Sam hadn't been there, this story wouldn't exist, and like, it wouldn't have turned out how it did. And so Sam really is the hero behind it all, and I love him so much, and I cannot wait to read the conclusion to this series. I can't believe after like literally like 7 years after buying these books, I'm finally reading them, and they are so good. I love them so much. So that is my wrap up for February. I did read also, I haven't finished this yet, but I am 326 pages into A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J. Maas. But I'll be finishing this in March, obviously. I only read like 100 pages of this within February, but that is my next read. But that is my wrap up. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what your favorite book in February was, and like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff, and I will talk to you guys next time. Bye!